Good day, this is Alexei Borealis. I'm recording this video for Ana Garcia's channel to demonstrate how I conducted the rectification of her chart and how I determined the exact time of birth. As mentioned in the interview, I utilized primary directions as the primary tool for rectification. I had approximately 10 or 15 critical events from Anna's life. In this video, I'll showcase a few events for illustration. The first event I considered was the birth of her son in November 2003. Let's examine the chart. Which two planets would we like to connect in the primary direction to reveal the birth of the sun? There are no planets inside the fifth house, but there is the ruler of the fifth house, Venus. In this chart, Venus represents the sun. I aim to connect Venus with the native. Inside the first house, there is only one planet, Venus itself. I can't use it as a significator of the native, it already signifies the sun. But I can use the first house ruler, Jupiter. Therefore, the aspect of Venus to Jupiter will be the first and brightest testimony of the child's birth. It is not the sole aspect that indicates the child. There may be other planets involved in this determination. It's crucial to note that the fifth house has a secondary ruler, which is Venus's depositor, Saturn. As a secondary ruler, Saturn represents the child to a lesser extent than Venus. But in this chart, Saturn has an additional connection with the fifth house. Firstly, Saturn forms a precise aspect with Venus. Moreover, it casts an aspect to the fifth house cusp within the orb. Hence, Saturn establishes a significant link with the fifth house and serves as a secondary significator of the child together with Venus. If Saturn makes contact with Venus and Jupiter in primary directions, it will provide an additional indication of the child's birth. The fifth house of the native is relatively narrow, it begins at 17 degrees of Taurus and ends at the first degrees of Gemini. In other words, the length of this house is approximately 14 degrees. The last few degrees of Gemini take about 10% of the house length. Mercury governs this small section of the house. While 10% isn't the most substantial influence, it is not negligible. Therefore, Mercury also holds minor control over the fifth house. Hence, if we observe that Mercury makes contact with Venus in a direction, it will complement the primary significator of childbirth. The contact between Mercury and Venus alone is insufficient to trigger the event, but it contributes as a minor element to other supporting testimonies. Therefore, I expect to observe the following aspects in primary directions. First, the aspect between the ruler of the fifth house, Venus, and Jupiter. Second, contact between the significator of the child, Saturn, either with Venus or Jupiter. And third, the contact between Mercury and Venus. I will bear in mind that the moon is a natural significator of babies, and it may play a role in that direction. This is what I am expecting to see in the directions for 2003. Let's now examine what was happening in 2003. I will input 2003 into the filter and examine the directions starting from that year. What do I observe? The first direction that unfolds this year, in March, is linked to work, to the activities of the native. I'll skip it. The second direction that starts that year is the movement of Venus, the fifth house ruler, towards the moon, the natural significator of children. Following this, the significator of the child, Venus, moves towards Mercury, a partial co-ruler of the fifth house, further reinforcing the significance of the previous direction. Finally, I notice that Jupiter and Venus make contact with each other. These two contacts represent the same direction. One is direct, and the other is converse, with Jupiter and Venus exchanging positions. It is the most prominent direction, indicating the birth of the child. I observe that Venus's opposition occurs in the sign of Cancer, the domicile of the moon, a natural significator of babies. In essence, the birth of the child, under the influence of the moon, comes into the native's life. The next direction is weaker since Saturn is the secondary significator of the child. However, we still observe a connection between the baby and the native. There are 5 directions, all pointing towards one common theme, the birth of a child. While each direction on its own might carry other meanings, collectively, they share a common thread, the arrival of a new child. 4 additional directions surround the most significant direction of Venus to Jupiter, all conveying the same meaning. This alignment is a remarkable coincidence. I also bear in mind that the child's birth can impact the native's activities, at least for that year. Hence, I could expect the Lord of the 10th house to form aspects with the significators of the child. The Lord of the 10th house, with the cusp in the 29th degree of Libra, is Venus, and the child already occupies that planet. However, Scorpio dominates most of the 10th house. Therefore, it would be logical for Mars to form a connection with the significator of the child in that year. Let's consider the 5th house cusp as a significator of the child. Mars makes a sextile aspect with the 5th house cusp, providing that year's final testimony of childbirth. As observed, the birth time at 4:50 a.m., as per the birth certificate, confirmed the initial event, the child's birth in 2003. Similarly, I examined the remaining 10 to 15 events, and all aligned perfectly with the birth time except for one. In 2018, Anna experienced a significant illness that culminated in surgery. When we analyze the primary directions of 2018, we do not find evidence of it. Since the focus is on health, it is essential to concentrate on the ascendant rather than the ruler of the first house. I expect to discover that in 2018, the ruler of the 12th house, Jupiter, forms a malefic aspect, square or opposition, to the ascendant. Additionally, I expect that some unfavorable aspects of Mars also approach the ascendant, indicating the subsequent surgery. The first direction of 2018 is Mars's square to the ascendant, which aligns precisely with my expectations. This aspect signifies the onset of the surgery. However, the question arises, where is the illness that precedes it? Where is the connection of the unfavorable aspect of Jupiter as a promitter to the ascendant as a significator? There is no one. And this is an issue. The significant event seems to be missing. I am eager to observe the direction of the illness immediately preceding the operation. Even when I review the preceding direction, I note the contact between Mars and Jupiter. However, this still doesn't account for the prior illness that affected the native. The problem likely stems from a slightly inaccurate birth time recorded on the birth certificate, which needs correction. Therefore, let's adjust the birth time backward or forward by the minute, carefully observing how the direction changes. Initially, I attempted to move the birth time backward, but it yielded no results. Let's try advancing the birth time and see what happens. I set the step to 1 minute and click the button. The operation's direction shifts down, moving forward in time. Initially slated for March, it has now progressed to May. However, until this point, nothing had appeared in 2018, despite my expectations of the direction of the disease. I'll advance birth time by 1 more minute, and there it is, a remarkable direction of Jupiter's opposition directly to the ascendant. But notice the considerable gap between the direction of operation and illness. Furthermore, the operation still precedes the disease, contrary to reality. Considering the context, I know that from the onset of the disease to the moment of the operation, Anna didn't engage in much social activity. Therefore, these two directions should logically follow each other. The direction of the disease initiates the illness, and the subsequent direction for the operation concludes it. Let's see what unfolds if I advance birth time by 1 more minute. The direction of the operation shifts below, while the direction of the disease now precedes it. These two directions coincided at some point, between 52 and 53 minutes. Given the detailed rectification in this video, I aim to pinpoint the exact time down to the seconds when these directions align. Let's step back by a minute, and now, I'll set a step interval of 10 seconds. I'll move birth time forward by 10-second intervals, starting at 4:52 Moscow time. The initial 10 seconds don't yield any changes. After another 10 seconds, we notice the direction of the operation shifting down, and the direction of the disease moving up, gradually converging. I'll continue advancing the birth time by 10 seconds until these two directions accurately align. The initial alignment occurs with birth time in around 4 hours, 52 minutes, and 40 seconds in the morning. Nevertheless, let's refine it further to pinpoint the precise interval within seconds where these two directions consistently coincide. I narrowed the rectification interval to 1 second and retraced my steps. The earliest moment of birth time with two directions aligning together is at 4 hours, 52 minutes, and 39 seconds AM. Commencing from that moment, I advanced the birth time forward by 1 second until these two directions ceased to be connected. I repeatedly pressed the button, observing these directions. Eventually, these directions diverged at the birth time of 4 hours, 52 minutes, and 51 seconds, revealing other active events in life between the disease and operation, contrary to reality. Consequently, the potential birth interval, wherein the predicted events align with the actual biography, falls somewhere between 4 hours 52 minutes and 39 seconds and 4:52 and 50 seconds AM. The birth occurred within a brief window of 11 seconds. Now, if I turn back to recheck the previous events, all the prior directions remain intact. For instance, when I reviewed 2003 and examined the child's birth, the direction order remained intact. The primary direction of Venus and Jupiter is still unfolding in June 2003. As a reminder, the child was born in November. It's typical to have a small gap of up to 4 months between the perfection of the primary direction and the event's actual occurrence. Additionally, there is a preceding contact between Jupiter, native, and Saturn, the child, and a prior contact between Mercury and Venus, as discussed earlier. We observe that the rectified time doesn't disrupt childbirth in 2003. Likewise, I verified all the remaining 10 or 15 significant life events based on the rectified birth time, and they all aligned with reality. To further confirm the accuracy of the rectified time, I described the significant events in Anna's life in 2007 based on the new birth time. These events were unknown to me, and I received feedback after disclosing them. Anna recorded this process on video. You can watch it through the link in the description. Let's wrap it up. Before the adjustment, all the significant events predicted from the birth chart aligned with reality, except for a major illness, which was missed and could not be foreseen in any way. After shifting the birth chart by a few minutes, all the major events, including a significant illness in 2018 and disclosed events of 2007, correspond to reality. This showcase demonstrates in detail how the precise time of birth can be rectified. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching.
Все, спасибо за просмотр.